Hi, I'm Chris with Afflictor Broadheads, and today we're going to butcher a deer hindquarter and show you how we process it. Alright, so we have our hindquarter here, and for this first hindquarter, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to show you how to trim it up and how to prepare it just to have a solid bone-in big roast. So like if you want to put a big bone-in entire hindquarter in the smoker or on your grill or for anything else that you try to do for a large group of people, that's what we're going to do for this hindquarter. So to get started, one thing we want to do is get rid of this lower leg. So we make sure there's no contamination on here, no more hair than necessary. Our meat's been hung and clean and is really nice, and we don't want to get any of that on here. So we're going to go ahead and remove that. And to do that, you just take this lower leg tendon first, and you can kind of get an idea here how the joint moves, where you're going to want to do your next cut. So as you move the leg, you can see that this bone actually extends all the way up to this tendon where it attaches right here. So this is all bone. Like, we think of a lot of bones, they just come right here, they attach, there's nothing really extending. But on these back legs of these whitetails, they're really putting a lot of heat and pressure on here that really has this bone coming out the back. So we want to make sure we just make this cut right here. If you find this little tendon along the side, you can cut that too. Get in behind here and cut that tendon, and that will start to separate that, and you can just put some downward pressure and it'll come right off. And then all you got to do is cut through this little bit of tendon that's left. And then you're done with your leg. So then you're left with this bigger part of the roast that has all your rounds and your great cuts in it, and then this part of the lower leg. So I like to remove this lower leg, and a lot of people throw these lower leg portions, these hocks, away, right? They're full of tendons, they're really tough. The guys that are cooking these are either grinding them or putting them in a crock pot for a week or two, and which is, all that is really good. What we do with these is pressure can them. So if you'd like for us to do a video on pressure canning, drop it in the comments, and that'll be something we can talk about next time, how to pressure can your whitetail. It's really an easy way to preserve it for a long time, and it is delicious. So the first thing I like to do is go ahead and take that meat off of here, because we are going to save that to pressure can. And you can get all the way down, even to the base here where it attaches, and in the pressure canner, that all comes out perfect and tender. It's really kind of neat how it all happens. And so as I separate all that, I'm just going to put this in a pile specific to go into the canner. And you just come down, follow the bone, and you can remove all of that really easy. Just like that. So that's the lower leg, the hock. And there's another one on the other side that we're going to get to in a second. Now what I like to do is to remove this bone. We're going to keep this bone, and we're going to cut this into segments to use for bone broth. That's another video that we could do later. So if you want to see something about how to turn your full leg bones into bone broth, drop that in the comments, and we'll do a video on that as well for you. So you can kind of see here, when you bend the joint, you can see where the next attachment point is, kind of this slack area right here. So if you take your heavier bladed knife and you just cut into that, you can see how it goes right in. You're already starting to separate that joint, and it allows you to visualize the joint right here. And you just get your knife tip in there, continue that cut, stay nice and close so you get all that meat, and then you're left just with the lower leg bone. I still have this tendon here that really needs to be processed a different way because it's super tough. And if you tried to put that on the smoker, we wouldn't be too happy with trying to chew it. And this is perfect for canning. So I go ahead and just use my fingers, separate that out, and then I take my knife and I follow that muscle around all the way to the bone, and I remove it. So now I have that next tough muscle that I'm going to use for canning. So then I have this beautiful, beautiful hunk of meat right here. Now we're going to turn this, since this is a small doe, we're going to go ahead and turn this whole thing into a piece of meat to go into the smoker for a family event. So all I'm going to do from here is trim it up. Now when you look at the outside of any part of venison, you're going to see that you have fat and you have silver skin. Anything on the outside, I personally like to remove. This fat, I think is ill-flavored for the meat. I don't like venison fat, this external fat at least. The inside fat that's inside the muscles always seems to be different to me, and I don't mind that. But any of this external stuff here, I try to get rid of, as well as the silver skin, just to make things not so chewy, and it helps keep everything tender. And if you're trying to convince your wife and family and maybe some younger kids that this is great stuff, you want to prepare it the best that you can, so it is. So what I do real quick is I just go in underneath all those areas and just remove it while it's here. Make it nice and simple. So this is the cleaned up rear hindquarter. It still has the bone in it, so there's still a bone down the center here, but this will cook up really nice. There's enough fat inside here that'll keep it moist, but if you're going to put it on a spit or somewhere where you're not going to have a lot of moisture, you may want to inject this. But I mean, this is a nice, clean, perfect roast to do whatever you want to do with. So let's go ahead and process the other side, and I'll show you how to separate the muscle groups. Okay, so here we have our hindquarter cleaned up, and basically we're just going to break it down into all of its little muscle groups, and then you can determine what you want to have from there. It doesn't matter what you call it, eye of round, rump roast, round steaks. It's what you want. So once you have it separated, you can decide what cuts are best for you. So the first thing I do is this big round here. I just get my thumb behind that, and I just start to separate that so I can get in here with my knife and work. And if you get in here, you can find where that attaches to the lower leg. You can keep on cutting, and you're going to separate that right out. Now, one of the easiest things to do is when you get this partially separated like this, is to go ahead and cut along the bone and separate the whole piece from that leg bone. So I'm just following along the bone. I'm letting my knife guide me. You can see right here where it's attached. You can separate that real quick. And I'm just following the bone. Same here. And if I leave a little bit of meat on the bone, that's actually good for what we do. Because of making bone broth and things like that, none of this goes to waste, so a little bit on the bone is fine. In fact, sometimes when I'm doing the bone broth on the stove, I'll include some of these other cuts. Instead of throwing them in the grinder, I'll put them in for the broth. All right. So there, we've just removed the bone, nice and clean, from the inside of the hindquarter. And now it's just separating groups. So you can see how there's the silver skin in here, a little bit of fat. All you have to do is follow the lines. There's nothing crazy here. If you want to get your fingers in there to help separate, you can. But it's really simple. Just follow the lines. Again, remember, I'm not a professional. This is just how I do it. And my rule of thumb is you can't screw this up. I mean, if you wanted something to be a steak and you cut it too small and you end up having to make something else out of it, or worst comes to worst, put it through the grinder, then that's fine. Your biggest concern is not letting anything go to waste. So you can see here again, another attachment, really simple, just separate it out. Another attachment, cut it off. You have that piece there. You got this big round here, and so I like to trim that up, just like that. So typically what I will do with this, after I clean a little bit more of this fat off of here, is I will turn this into a roast, or I'll take it like this and I will cut it and make steaks out of it. So it's whatever the family needs at the time is what I'm going to be doing. So once you have that piece here, if you're going to make this into steaks, both of these pieces are also really good if you're into jerky. Both these pieces here cut really nice into jerky. But if I'm going to make steaks, the first thing I like to do is square it up so it's the same thickness, and then I will just go ahead and cut my steaks, however thick that I want to do them, all the way down. Again, just trying to get them the same thickness. And then when I get where things get narrow down here, I'm going to go ahead and use that for something else. And then this section gets wrapped as steaks. Same for this here. I'll go ahead and square it up. That'll get used for something else. and then I go ahead and cut my steaks. And then I start to get narrow again. I probably could get one more out of there. And then use that for something else. On some of these smaller pieces, after you separate them, I still like to trim off any fat and thick silver skin or anything that's on there that might be undesirable. Just take it off. And then pieces like this, I like to cut. Like I said, I love to wrap these in bacon and put them on the grill. So I just cut them in nice chunks. That'll actually go on the grill tonight for dinner. Something like this that's got a lot of fat on it, that'll definitely get canned. When you can, any of this fat will automatically come to the top when you pressure can, and then you can simply remove it. When you take off the lid, it'll come off in one solid piece, and then you've actually removed all the fat. So I hope that helped you out. This is just a little bit of breakdown on a small deer, just to give you an idea of what you could do with the hindquarters, the easiest way to break it down, at least the way we do it. There's lots of ways. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it helps you out. Please hit the subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments.